Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome everybody to the Week 8 Waiver Wire Pickups. We're halfway through, and it almost feels like at this point, will anybody be healthy at the end of the season? But let's see what we can do to help you find some names to scavenge off the scrap heap, or maybe even turn into weekly starters after some of these injuries that have happened this weekend. But first, Mr. Sullivan, how was your Sunday? How was the schedule treating you this week for your fantasy teams?
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's okay this week. I still got a lot up in the air. I'm not entirely sure, but much better than last week. Last week, I think, was the worst week of my career. So I might pull some things out of the fire. I lost some key guys today to injury, but I'm sure so many others did as well. So, yeah, limping along, literally.
It feels like at this point we're going to be starting, some of the guys on this list regularly because, Odell's injury, and you just keep piling up the stars' injuries. It's like, oh my goodness, this is crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy I have a bit of a knowledge of the CFL and their dormant rosters right now, because some of those guys might be dusted off coming up here the way it's going.
The AAF is out of guys. They've all been taken, so we got to go somewhere.
Crazy.
With that being said, we'll get to it. We'll get you guys 3 names at each position. Hopefully they are guys that you don't need. Hopefully your team's full of guys that are healthy and vibrant and ready to roll, but we know this year that's not the case. So we'll see what we can do to help you guys. As always, if you like the video, comment, tell us what you think about these players, ask questions. We monitor the YouTube comments so that we can help you guys out. Like, subscribe, go over to our Facebook community, our Discord community. We can help you out not only on these videos on YouTube, but wherever you are. You can find our Twitter handles below us. We do have no problems answering the DMs. We get plenty of them every week. So with that being said, we'll just get into it. Let's get to the quarterbacks. We got 3 names. We got Teddy B. We got Tua Tagovailoa, who was on bye this week, and then Baker Mayfield, who may be trying to resurrect his career with beating a weak opponent this week. What's your take on these guys? I see most of them are below 45. Actually, all of them are less than 45% ownership in their respective fantasy communities. What do you think about them?
Start off with Teddy, and man, as a Vikings guy, it's so nice to see him back in the league and playing first and foremost. But the way he's playing is really special. So, labeled a game manager through a lot of time in Minnesota and even the 5 games he was in New Orleans, but he's been lights out in Carolina. He's been utilizing all of those weapons in that offense. He's been more mobile than I thought he would. He's a guy that needs to be owned a heck of a lot more than 31% on ESPN and 43% on Yahoo. He looks good. That's really all I can say about Teddy. When you look at Tua, I don't know how much. I really don't know, but I think that a starting quarterback in an offense that also has some weapons that Brian Fitzpatrick did quite well with. They must have confidence in Tagovailoa because they're making the move. So he's readily available everywhere. So if you're, in a pinch on a bye week or you've lost a quarterback due to injury, perhaps Tua can bridge the gap there. And what do you say about Baker Mayfield? He was lights out today. Through 5 touchdown passes. He's using his tight ends. He's using all these receivers. He just looked like as close to when he was in his rookie season on fire, Baker Mayfield, as I've seen. So perhaps having a little bit better of an offense with Kevin Stefanski and Van Pelt helping him out to run the show there. I like him a lot. What do you think of this trio of guys?
Well, and Baker, I think, is the most intriguing of these 3 because look at the soft schedule they have. So next they get the Raiders, the Texans, the Eagles, the Jaguars. Then they have 2 tough games, Titans, Ravens. After that, Giants, Jets. And then they end with the Steelers. Now, most people obviously don't play, but championship week, they are facing, potentially the Jets or the Giants.
Sweet.
That's QB1 right there.
I'm not so sure that Titans matchup is as tough as we think it is either. They're giving up the points to quarterbacks and wide receivers, so perhaps it isn't. But
and especially if they establish the run and a lot of the play action stuff they do. Baker could be a QB1 the rest of the way. even though he's not been great, he could be really helpful. That matchup against the Ravens, I'd probably look elsewhere, depending on who else you have. But
I really like him next week. Absolutely.
oh yeah, that'll be huge next week. And the young guys, I think, there's a lot of potential there. Tua is one of those unknowns, so he can move around. He's got that rushing capability that you like in your quarterbacks in fantasy, but we just don't know. So if you like him, this is the time to get him off the waiver wire before he hits, because if he has a big game, then everybody's going to go get him. Teddy Bridgewater's another one that you always want to pull for him after that big injury. And he's a guy that you should be able to start the rest of the way. They have a solid schedule where they should be able to pass the ball pretty well. So I like all three. I think they're all very viable options, especially if you're kind of in the aftermath of the Dak injury, or maybe you went and tried to get Dalton and you've come to realize the Rocket ain't what he used to be. You can then go get one of these guys and feel pretty comfortable about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so on to our running backs. We've got some interesting names on this list. One of them, I think, really should have been the starter for his team basically the entire year. The other two are backups that play significant roles even when the starter's there. So Boston Scott from Philadelphia, Gio Bernard from Cincinnati, and then J.K. Dobbins, the rookie from the Ravens. All of them are under 65% ownership. In ESPN, they're actually all below 50%. So in Yahoo, they're a little bit higher. But all of them have the capability of giving you points even when their starter, even when the guy that's the starter is there. Miles Sanders, obviously, he's been injured up and down. Gio Bernard, we don't know how long he's really going to be the starter. Mixon's injury hopefully won't be long-term, but just got to be careful there. And then Dobbins is just the best running back on the team, so he should be the starter anyway. What are your take on these guys? Is there one you like more than the others? Is there one you think is safer? What do you think?
Talent-wise, J.K. Dobbins would be my choice. I think he's the best back of this list, and I agree with you. He's the most talented back on his team. Mark Ingram was banged up going into their bye week. Not sure how banged up he's going to be coming out of it, but I like J.K. Dobbins to start getting a little bit more work in that offense. I don't know if I'm comfortable starting him yet, but I'm certainly comfortable in picking him up. When you look at Boston Scott and Giovanni Bernard, they're really dependent on their team's sort of primary running back not necessarily being in the lineup or being limited. What I like about Boston Scott is I think he has lasting or staying power in the receiving game. He doesn't do much for me as a rusher. In fact, on Thursday night, he didn't do much at all on the ground, but he was really involved in the passing game, and he made one big heck of a catch to win the football game. So I like him going forward as a guy, again, I'm going to put onto my roster. And Gio just produces when Mixon's out. I think I came across a stat today that 80% of the games that Mixon has been out, Giovanni Bernard's been a top 12 running back in fantasy. So when he gets his chance, he's good to go. Mixon is week to week with this foot injury. I believe the Bengals are on bye next week. So again, you got to monitor it and see where he's coming from. But I think all three should be owned, and all three can be plugged into your lineup in the right spots to propel you forward. Like right now, running back is really, really ugly on the waiver wire. You're not going to get anything better than these three guys. So if you see him on your wire, I suggest you snatch him up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so at wide receiver, we've got some names on here you may or may not have ever heard of. Marquez Callaway from the Saints obviously had a huge Week 7. Donovan Peoples-Jones won it for the Brownies. Odell went down. He came in and got them the dub. So, and last but not least is the name that you would have been familiar with if you were into fantasy a few years ago, but he disappeared, and that's Nelson Aguilar with the Las Vegas Raiders. Aguilar, interestingly enough, is basically getting a touchdown a week. Some weeks he gets 50 yards, some weeks he gets 100 yards. So he's really kind of resurrected his career. He's catching better. He's catching more of the balls coming his way. That was his issue in Philly. Everybody said, great receiver if he's got the ball in his hands, but most of the time he let the ball hit the ground. So maybe there's a resurrection of the career, but either way, with all the injuries that we've seen, Nelson here is my favorite, and I picked him up in basically every league I've been able to get him in because you really can't beat, 50 to 100 yards and potentially a touchdown every week from a guy in an offense that's very pass-heavy right now. How do you feel about these guys, and what's your take on them?
I don't know much about Callaway at all. Undrafted free agent out of Tennessee, had a real nice game today. Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders both out of the lineup, so thrust into the opportunity. It looks like he made the most of it. Apparently, he got hurt late in that game and he got rolled up on his ankle a little bit and he didn't finish it. So before you go and grab him off your wire, you should probably take a look and see what his status is. Also, the status of Manny Sanders, because I think if Sanders can clear the COVID protocol and get back on the field, that'll be a negative for Marquez Callaway. Donovan's Peoples-Jones, I don't know, man. He's a rookie I liked coming out, ended up. But all of a sudden, my boy Odell is looking like he's seriously injured. So that's horrific for the Browns and Odell's fantasy managers, but it could be good for DPJ. And he made the most of his opportunities today. So he's free. He's owned 0.1% on ESPN, and apparently nobody on Yahoo owns him. So he's available. And Aguilar, I totally agree with you. He is quietly becoming a reliable target for Derek Carr and the Raiders. I think he's kind of what I thought Henry Ruggs would be, which is sort of weird. The last time I really remember seeing Nelson Aguilar, he was avoiding a ball in the air as the Eagles wide receiver. He was wide open and he decided to turn away from the football. So I didn't have a real affinity to want to add him in any of my teams when I saw where he landed with the Raiders. In fact, I wasn't sure he'd make the team. I thought he'd be battling with guys like Zay Jones to make the roster, but he's made the team. He's playing good. Carr trusts him. Again, a guy that's almost virtually unowned. Absolutely pick him up. I don't know when you're going to start him, but he's a matchup guy. And if he 14 points in his last 2 games, and he went probably over 20 today. So he's a guy that needs to be owned. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and that's with all these injuries, you're going to be kind of piecemealing a lineup together each week, and we get that. So, with me, I'm trying to figure out, okay, where do I get the guy who's got the good rest of the season schedule that maybe I can sneak in some good weeks out of? When you look at a guy like Aguilar, that is a perfect example. He's got a fairly tough schedule, but he's already got 292 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. But next he's got the Browns, who are ranked 29th in against the pass. Then the Chargers, who are 23rd. Then they got a little more tougher matchup in the Broncos, then the Chiefs. But then they get the Falcons and the Jets. Then they get the Colts. But then for the playoffs, they get Chargers and Dolphins. Those are both very solid games where he could have the potential for bigger games. Because even against the Chiefs, he put up 67 yards and a touchdown. Now, obviously, the tougher thing with Aguilar is before this week's game, where this week against the Bucs he was targeted 9 times, he hadn't had more than 4 targets in the game, and really he was averaging like 1 to 2 a game. But it was the big play, so he was getting 30, 40, 50 yards and potentially a touchdown on that catch. So I think he's quickly moving himself into a role that's going to be featured, because not only is he a big play threat, but he's caught 15 of the 20 passes thrown his way. So we know that he's getting a little bit more reliable. So if I'm somebody who's in desperate need of kind of a big play, kind of boomer bust flex option that I can throw in matchup based, this is a good option. Obviously you'd like for there to be better options out there, but right now, which is with all the injuries, just kind of is what it is. So I would jump on Aguilar. The other 2, I'm going to wait and see. One big week does not define things in my mind. Like, I want to see what happens.
Great.
Obviously, Odell, with him being down, the thing is going to look different. The offense is going to run differently. But somebody needs to step up. Is it Higgins? I know they've had him around for a while and they've liked him. Does the rookie start to begin to build a little steam? I don't know. Maybe. There's always potential, With that being said, let's round it out with the tight ends. So we have 3 tight ends. 3. They're options. I mean, they're definitely guys that
they're tight ends.
Yeah, they are. I actually started one of them this week, and that was Logan Thomas. So Logan
Nicely
Thomas,
done.
Logan Thomas. Well, it's just because I had no options. I was like, well, he might get thrown the ball. He got a little bit of action. Logan Thomas from the Redskins, Eric Ebron from the Steelers, as a Lions guy. That hurts me to say that. And Harrison Bryant, tight end number 3 on the Browns roster, but he's the one they seem to be targeting the most here recently. What do you have? 2 touchdowns this week, I think?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. So these are 3 interesting names. I think Ebron will. Unfortunately, with him, you're going to get a guy who some weeks looks amazing, some weeks doesn't catch the ball. I mean, that's a very boom bust option, but he's got such a good athletic profile that the boom is boom and the bust is blah. The other 2 are kind of shot in the darks. That Bryant. Interestingly enough, when you posted how much he's owned percentages, on Yahoo, barely anybody owns him. On ESPN, everybody seems to love him, and he's 70% owned. So he's an interesting name to throw out, obviously very polarizing. What's your take on these guys?
I don't think really there's much here, but there's not much at tight end either. So when I put this together, Eric Ebron is on that list just simply because I want any piece of the Steelers offense that I can get. I watched the majority of that game today, and they looked really, really good. And Ben seems to be in control. So, Ebron's going to be a red zone guy. I don't think he's going to do much anywhere else on the field. He might get you a catch or 2. But if you can get a 6 and 40 and maybe a touchdown, you got a tight end 1 that week. So giddy up and go. So Ebron, I think, needs to be owned more than he is. Harrison Bryant, I don't know. Hooper's had an emergency appendectomy this week. He's probably going to be out next week. They play the Raiders. You could do worse if you are totally desperate at tight end. And Logan Thomas is a guy I like and I have liked for a while now. Big dude, converted quarterback, was getting targeted a ton by Haskins, but he couldn't hit him. And, Kyle Allen isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but he is a step up from what they had. And he seems to be clicking a little bit with Kyle Allen. And anytime a guy gets targets, it means he's got opportunities. So I would probably put Logan Thomas on the top of this list priority-wise, and then Ebron, and then Bryant. But I don't really love any of them, to be 100% honest.
Yeah, no, Thomas is definitely the most reliable of these guys because in that offense, it's kind of Terry McLaurin, then Thomas kind of is their second option in the passing. I mean, it's tough. They don't have a ton of number 2 options, so the tight end kind of defunct is that, or default, yeah. Not defunct. Default is that. So there you go, people. There are your quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. If you have questions or you have comments on these guys, post them below. We'll get back to you on them. We'll respond and help you accordingly. Otherwise, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us on this week's Waiver Wire edition. We're here to help, but ultimately, RotoHeat.com is where you want to go for all things. That's the hub of knowledge. Mr. Sullivan, thank you for joining me again. I appreciate your hard work and dedication. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to. Do it.